Hi, I'm Emily. I am a performance coach for the finance sector and also the founder of Found Coaching. So here I'm really working with the banks and investment firms to help them build and sustain high performance, and doing that through one-to-one coaching, workshops, and really keeping neuroscience at the front of that. So really brain science, so that we can understand how to look after and take care of our brains better so that we can feel and perform at our best. So that's really what I'm doing, helping finance firms to achieve sustainable high performance. I think now, focus. If you can be someone who really hones on their focus skills, you are so far ahead, and it is such an edge because it is so difficult now. So now, day to day, we have this constant barrage of distractions, interruptions, from email to your messenger to back-to-back meetings, competing demands. So it's harder and harder to focus than ever. And in fact, also with our attention spans, that they're now around 47 seconds. So what can you do personally so that you can look to improve your focus and your mental clarity? So if I give you a few different things. So number one is really around structure. So thinking for you, how you structure your typical workday individually, and if you're a team leader, how do you structure it for your team? And are you someone who structures it proactively or reactively? And for a lot of people, that it tends to be quite reactive. So thinking about how you can do this better. So part of that is really thinking about how you can find deep focus blocks into your days. Busy professionals tend to spend less than 10% of their day really in that deep focus state, what we refer to as flow state. So that really deep immersive state where you're so immersed in what you're doing that everything else just fades into the background. Time seems to typically fly by, and it often feels great when we're in it and our ideas just connect seamlessly together. And we know from the research that when we are in this state, our performance is significantly amplified across things like productivity, creative problem solving, speed of learning, but also that when you're in this state, your stress levels can be reduced and also reduce burnout symptoms. But as people are only spending less than 10% of their day in it, if you can be someone who does block out this time, so what that could look like is 90 to 120 minutes ideally, because we have natural rhythms called ultradian rhythms that are really our natural cycles for alertness and productivity. If you could block that out, if you're busy, start with once a week. If you are a manager and someone who has control over how the team operates, could you block that out for the team once a week, twice a week? So say 9 to 11 a.m., no meetings, so people can really focus on their high value work. So this is the first one, structuring your week. Number two then really is environment. First of all, your physical environment. Are you that person whose desk is super messy and there's lots of clutter around you, which can also contribute to that mental clutter? But also then your digital environment. Are you someone who always has your emails open, that your notifications are always flashing in the corner? Because these are all part of ways that really can be interrupting our focus. So thinking about how we can optimize those better. So for example, by not having your notifications automatically on, perhaps unless you're on a really important project at the moment, a live deal or something that really needs your immediate responses, but a lot of the time, it doesn't always need your urgent response. So thinking about how you could reduce the amount of notifications and interruptions that you have in your day. And thirdly is recovery. So a lot of the people that I work with are super ambitious, they're very driven, in the industry of finance and banking in general, that people tend to work quite long hours and wanting to fit in a lot of things, not often taking much time to rest and recover. But we know from the research on deep focus and flow state that recovery is part of the process, that there is a 4-stage cycle to getting into flow state and that peak performance state where you feel and perform at your best. And the 4th stage is recovery. So if you want to be performing at your best and feeling your best sustainably, you really need to be carving out time for that. So what that can look like is the research suggests 10 minutes, ideally, for micro breaks, and a bit longer if it's something that you've been doing cognitively demanding beforehand. And when you're on that break, thinking, not trying to be on your phone, but doing things that are actually truly restorative. So there are 3 things to really help elevate your focus and mental clarity. So the structure, environment, and recovery. And as I mentioned, this is harder than ever. So if you can be someone that does it for you and your team and your organization, it is such a competitive advantage. So I mentioned a couple there, but if I give 3 other specific ones. So number 1 actually starts before you even get to work. We know that what you do in that first 30 minutes to 60 minutes before you wake up is so important for how you set the tone for the rest of the day. Not looking at your phone first thing. Sounds simple, not always easy in practice, but the reason being is that when you are going on your phone, if you're checking your WhatsApp or your messages or your emails first thing, and you get that spike in dopamine, that can mean that you are seeking more of that distraction for the rest of the day. And a lot of people will tell me that, oh, but my alarm's on there. So get a normal alarm clock, charge your phone in a different room, and really try and not look at that will really make a big difference. Number 2 then, when you're in your working environment, is to keep your phone out of sight. So we know that if your phone is even in your eye line, that it is sending signals to your brain to maybe there's something important on there that you should be checking. So keeping it out of sight is really important if you want to keep your full mental bandwidth. And then finally, batching tasks. As I mentioned, a lot of us do spend the time ping-ponging between lots of different tasks, back-to-back meetings, emails, multitasking between them. But batching similar tasks together can be really powerful. And what do I mean by that? If you can bulk together your strategic tasks, your people management tasks, your analytical tasks, whatever it might be for you. And this also goes for things like emails. If you can batch them together, might not always be possible if you have a high priority project that you're working on or a live deal. But in other instances, trying to batch those together so you're not constantly distracted throughout the full day. So that's avoiding your phone first thing, keeping your phone out of sight during, and batching the tasks to really prevent getting attention residue, because when you switch between the different tasks, that actually part of your brain is still focusing on the previous task, so preventing you from giving your full focus to the current one. So I'd start by saying that stress in of itself is not a bad thing. That actually a little bit of stress is positive for performance because it can help us to focus, to stay alert, and really do that with a little bit of stress. The problem can be when we are at that high level of stress for sustained periods of time, so that when it might become chronic or maladaptive, your body usually, that if there is a threat or something that is a stressor around you, that you will have the stress response and then it will come back down. The challenge is when you don't have that natural response, that it comes back down and you stay in that heightened state for prolonged periods. So this can really then impair your emotional regulation. You might notice that you're more irritable and small things just really set you off, but also things like your decision making, your ability to think clearly. So really being able to learn what your stresses are and manage them is so important. So the 2 ways to think about this practically is, 1, identifying what are the sources for you. What is it specifically that is causing you the stress? So is it a specific project? Is it a certain person? Is it something at home? And then thinking, what can you do to try and reduce it, and controlling the controllables here, trying to reduce it at the source where possible. But then also having stress techniques in your toolbox so that when you are feeling that sense of heightened stress for long periods of time, that you know how to reset yourself and recenter yourself so that you can feel good and deliver your best work. So to give a really practical example, and one that I see works maybe the best with the people that I work with, and this is from across junior levels up to partner and super senior levels, is breath work. And I know breath work can get a tough reputation because people might regard it as woo-woo or fluffy, but actually it's deeply rooted in science. And here specifically, I'm referring to long exhale breathing. And what I mean by that is that you're exhaling for longer than you will inhale. So a simple example would be that you breathe in for 4 seconds and out for 8 seconds. And you can repeat that for 2 minutes. So part of the reason why I love it, but also why I see it so effective with the people working in finance and banking, is that it is so simple and so quick, and you can do it at the same time as something else, even if you are that busy. So even 2 minutes, focusing on taking those deep breaths with the longer inhales, can really help you to recenter. And how I see this work in practice is that some people do this with their morning cup of coffee. Some people have a reminder in their calendar, maybe 1 in the morning, 1 in the afternoon. Some people do it in between meetings, if a meeting finishes early, on your commute. There are so many different ways. Some people also, when they go to the bathroom, when they're washing their hands, trying to have those micro moments so that you're activating your parasympathetic nervous system. So the rest and digest part of you, because a lot of us are spending so much time in fight or flight. So it's really important to have those tools so that you can activate your parasympathetic nervous system. And breath work, and specifically long exhale breathing, is one of the fastest and most effective ways to do that. So that is a tool that I would highly recommend if anyone is looking to manage their stress better, is really giving that a go. I think this now is more important than ever. When we look at the rate of change right now, it is incredibly fast, from AI to the geopolitical backdrop, that individuals, teams, and organizations are having to be so agile to be able to not be on the back foot with this, but really at the forefront, and to be able to adapt and thrive in this environment. So what I would say is a couple of things here. First of all, that being open to this when there is times of uncertainty and ambiguity is that it is a mindset, and that typically our brains are wired to see ambiguity and uncertainty as a threat. So it might invoke fear in us, and that is a typical response. But if we can start to reframe that, to actually view it as an opportunity, so that when we do start to see something that is maybe uncertain, that you really notice the opportunity within that, and seeing it more as a cue for growth. So that's the first thing, is a big part is around the framing. But then also, to give something really practical, is what I would call the teacup protocol, and it stands for thinking clearly under pressure. And this is widely used in elite sports, but also in military settings. And it's effectively having a protocol that you go to in these times of rapid change where you need to be adaptable. And it's really thinking in advance what the different outcomes could be and how you would like to be responding to it. So there's three main different areas to think about in advance. Is one, what situations is it that throw you off? Typically, is it when you've been working on a project or a deal for a really long time, and then it gets derailed all of a sudden, and that's what throws you off? Really understanding what those things are for you. Then thinking, how do I want to respond in those situations? So do I want to be calm and collected, collaborative, maybe? Whatever it is that in these moments of a big change, how do you want to respond? And then the third one is, what do you need in the moment to make that happen? So perhaps it is the deep breaths that I was just referring to. Maybe it's asking a clarifying question if it's someone else that's delivering the news to you. Maybe it's that you take 30 seconds to just write down your thoughts to process the change and the way forward. But really having a protocol that you go to in advance, so that when there is this rapid change and that you're trying to deal with, is knowing how you want to deal with that, so that you can view it as an opportunity and as a learning, rather than as a threat or something to be scared about. Your state is everything with high performance, because the state that you are in will allow you to either thrive and think clearly and make rational, good decisions and interact with the people around you well, or the opposite. So learning how to regulate those emotions, whether it is related to stress or whether it is related to something else. So to give something, again, very practical, is one that I see working really well. So if you have 2 minutes in your day, which I'm sure everyone does, that doing the breath work, but if you can find 10-minute blocks in your day, which again, I would challenge everyone to do, it's something that can be really effective, is body scan meditation. And this can be amazing for emotional regulation, because it's encouraging you to take those moments to pause and to really be alone with your thoughts and understanding how you're actually feeling. How it works in practice is that taking those 10 minutes, and you might be at your desk and sitting up straight and starting with a couple of deep breaths. And then you are scanning with your eyes closed from your head down to your toes, and just noticing how you feel in your body. And you will tend to feel it, whether it is stress, whether it is anger, whether it is sadness, whether it's excitement or positive emotions, you will feel it typically in your body. So taking the moment to acknowledging what they are, but doing meditation in general, and this body scan meditation in as little as 10 minutes, that the research shows that this can help to reduce your stress. But it can also improve your social interactions, because it is helping to calm the part of your brain called the amygdala, which is like an emotional center in your brain, but it's also activating your prefrontal cortex, the bit behind your forehead. So the combination is allowing you to be focused and have clarity, but also bringing a sense of calm. So it can be really powerful. And like I mentioned, it's just as little as 10 minutes of your time to handle social situations better and reduce your stress, so that you can learn to really emotionally regulate. sadly, burnout is a huge challenge at the moment in the finance industry and beyond. So the 2025 burnout report was released earlier this year, and the data showed that across the thousands of people that were included in the study, that 9 in 10 people had felt high or extreme pressure or stress in the previous year. 9 in 10 people. But then at the same time, 1 in 3 people felt that often or always. 1 in 3. It is a stress epidemic. But then with burnout specifically, I think it's important to say here that there's a misconception that burnout is only related to workload, that it's just if you have too much work, that's what the cause is of burnout. But actually there are various different triggers. So there are 6 core triggers that have been identified in research, and things including, yes, workload, but also a perceived lack of control, a misalignment in values between the individual and say the organization, the sense of community, so maybe not feeling connected to people. There are so many different ways that it could be showing up. So that's part of it, is being mindful of what those are, so you can bear it in mind for yourself, your team or teams. And so what people can realistically think about in terms of habits and strategies. As a performance coach, something that I'm talking about a lot with people is the brain health fundamentals. They are things that typically people know, but when we get stressed or really busy, might not do as much or as well as we know we should. Things like sleeping well, things like eating well, things like movement and exercise, also your self-talk and your mindset. So these are all things that are impacting your energy levels, your ability to think clearly, and also how to perform. So really always trying to take care of these, but especially if you're going through periods of high pressure, high stress, is trying to pay even more attention to them, because often it's the opposite, that when we get really busy, they're one of the first things to go, that we cancel the exercise plans, we cancel the social plans to really be able to do more work. So that's a big one, the brain health fundamentals. And second of all is that your neurochemicals and your neurotransmitters in your brain, so some of them that people will be more familiar with things like dopamine, is more commonly in vernacular these days, but also things like endorphins, which people may recognize from running, oxytocin, which is largely about connection between people, serotonin to do with mood and well-being, is thinking what activities help you to release those happy, feel-good neurochemicals, neurotransmitters. And they might be slightly different for different people, but largely they're things that are quite simple. So it could be having time to work on your goals. It could be spending time in nature and getting outside. It can be gratitude, so thinking about the things that you're grateful for. It can be connection, so spending time with those that you care about. And also things like play. So if you have young children or people around you that you can really have that play time with. And even if you don't have children, to really encourage you to have fun and laughter, that this can be really positive for the release of some of these, so that you can have the right balance of these neurochemicals, neurotransmitters in your brain to help you stay in that feel good and allow yourself to feel great and perform well, to try and reduce the likelihood of burnout. But equally, getting into flow state, as we were mentioning earlier, that the research suggests that this can also help with reducing burnout symptoms, because it is one of those states where all of those chemicals are released when you're in that deep focus state. So it can be another thing that the deep focus is not only beneficial for how you feel at work, but it can also be for your general well-being too. With the people that I work with, it's always completely tailored, but typically we're following a 3-stage framework. The first stage is energize, then visualize, and then optimize. The energize piece is largely the brain health fundamentals that we were just talking about. So what can you do to sustain your energy levels? This could be related to sleep, to nutrition, to exercise. And if people don't know where to start with sleep. Sleep is golden for performance and well-being. So things like making sure you get enough hours, making sure that you can improve the quality as well. So you're sleeping somewhere that's cold and that's dark, trying to be as consistent as possible with the time that you go to sleep and when you wake up, because your body loves that consistency. So thinking about how you can maintain your energy levels better and manage your stress better too, to really lay those strong foundations. And then going into the second one is visualize. Here it's really understanding what you want to achieve and why. And it's surprising how many people, because being so busy or being so reactive, they often don't have time to think about what do I actually want and why is that important? So here it's important to think about identity-based habits. So it's not just that you want a promotion, that you want to make partner or whatever level it is that you're striving for, but it's like, why is that important to you? At an identity level? Is it that it will allow you to create this lifestyle that you can have an amazing time with the people that you care about? Is it that you want to be an energetic, charismatic leader? Is it that you want to be someone who fulfills their potential and that you look back when you're 80 and you've created a life and a career that you're really proud of? So connecting to not only what you want to achieve, but why that matters to you. But we also see with young generations that this sense of meaning and purpose is also really, really important. So for yourselves, but if you're someone who's managing others, is thinking about how can you help them to find that through their work, to have that sense of meaning, because it's also great for motivation. When things get tough, you remember why you're doing it, because things will get difficult, you will get busy, there'll be tough deadlines. And then finally is this optimize piece. So you've built the strong foundations, you know where you're going, and then the optimize. And this will look different for different people, that they will need to optimize different things. So flow state is a large part of what I do with people on this. So really tapping into that peak performance state on demand so that you can be more productive, you can be more innovative, that you can reduce your stress at the same time and learn faster. But also leadership capabilities. So self-leadership and the leadership of others. So this might look like emotional intelligence. It might look like communication. So these are some of the different areas that I would work on with people, but thinking about it as a framework, and then the behaviors that will support them to feel great and perform at their best too.